Joe Biden pulls a surprise win out of Super Tuesday. Millennials whine about the results of what Super Tuesday might have been. A protester storms Biden's stage, and Bloomberg reassesses his campaign. Plus, AOC's highly religious speech and Nashville's tornado details what you need to know and what we've seen from the news so far. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning and welcome to Contemporary. Oh, I got my milk glass sitting over there, of course. My name is Jay Edgar. We've got a lot to talk about today, and one of the first things that I do want to talk about is, you know, let it be said that some of the best ways to cook, one of the best ways to cook, I should say, is to just throw stuff in the slow cooker until you think it's going to taste good. And I think I kind of succeeded in that the other day when we were getting ready to go with when we were getting ready to start Ed's World the other night. Jessica Green and I did our mic check, and then I went through and I threw some chicken breasts and a bunch of other ingredients into the slow cooker, and I made garlic peppercorn chicken, and it was delicious. I can't give you the recipe because I have no idea what the measurements were of anything that I put in there, but man, it was good, and you're missing out by the fact that you don't live close enough to eat this here. We just had Super Tuesday go through, and it's kind of nice with when the sun is bright enough that you don't need to have the studio lights either. So that's kind of nice. I mean, this show is more focused on the audio than the video, but it's still kind of nice to have enough sun shining in that we don't need studio lights here. It looks good in here still, but we got to talk about Super Tuesday. So we had quite the battle last night. I was actually watching most everything come in. It looks like not everybody is fully reporting it. California is still going, but they've called it for Bernie Sanders. Alabama's still going. They called it for Joe Biden. I mean, we're in high percentages where they pretty well know what the outcome is going to be. Let's collapse that down so we can see the rest of it there. Yeah, Colorado, they called for Bernie right away as soon as they closed the polls. They called for that. Maine, I think, is still contested. It looks like, but yeah, that is too close to call anyway. Biden and Bernie Sanders are within 1 percentage point of each other, so it has been an interesting night. What's been the most interesting, of course, is the fact that Joe Biden has come together and won Super Tuesday for pretty much the most part. Looking at the delegate count of what's called so far, and there's still delegates up in the air right now at this point here. But as of this morning, when I first checked, Biden is at 453 delegates to Sanders' 373, with a few of them still up in the air. Warren actually did halfway okay. She got 39 delegates out of last night because I don't believe she had any of at all going into any of this. So, and Bloomberg actually had a pretty good showing too on his first day. Now, we'll be talking about Bloomberg here in just a bit, but it's a little surprising the fact that Bloomberg that he did as well as he did, considering the fact that nobody likes him and all that they did was dogpile on him. But he got American Samoa. He won that walking away. And Tulsi Gabbard actually managed to walk away with a delegate too, which was a bit surprising there. I don't think anybody even remembers that Tulsi Gabbard was running, but yeah, that's where we sit right now. And of course, Mayor Pete's delegates are set to go to Biden, and Klobuchar's delegates are set to go to Biden. So Biden walked away from last night with, I don't want to say a hell of a lead because he's within 100 delegates, but he has got a substantial lead right now with where we're sitting on delegates. I mean, that's within 100. That would still be 25%. I think he's got like 20% lead over Bernie Sanders right now, which is amazing. I love to see this, and I would love to see Bernie Sanders go up and face the Donald. I really would. But this is telling, and that's why I titled the episode the way that it was. This is going to be 2016 2.0. This is going to be old guard Democrats versus socialists, and I think the old guards is going to win again. I really do. Let's see, what else do we got? Let's look at some of these races here. Texas is in, they called it for Joe Biden. I know they split the delegates somewhat, and they still have a lot to divvy up on this one here, but I mean, it's 56-50 right now with a 3.6% lead. I know that was one of them that the Bernie camp was vying for hard, and it was running really, really close throughout the entire night, which, given the Hispanic population of Texas, doesn't surprise me, but it also does surprise me to an extent because, I mean, this is one of the most conservative states out there, and I was really surprised that they skewed that hard towards socialism, that close. Tennessee, of course, 28-15, 7-1 for delegates. They are 98% reporting, and they do still have, I think, some of the delegates they can... No, they do not. They have divvied up completely already. Just doing some quick mental math here. So it was an interesting night, to say the least. And I know a lot of people were biting the nails, and pretty much the only things that Bernie Sanders won were the things that everybody that knew he was going to win. California, obviously, before they closed the polls, they said, okay, this is going Bernie. Colorado, before they closed the polls, they said, this is going Bernie. And of course, they did a lot of that with exit polling, so that has yet to be seen with the statistics. And of course, they couldn't promise delegates out because it's not a winner-take-all system for delegates, as it is on the GOP side. But yeah, in Vermont, of course, because that's his home state, and they continue, for whatever reason, putting the man into the U.S. Senate. All of these, we knew that Bernie was going to win, but anything that we weren't sure about, yeah, that went to Biden. So I don't think America's ready for socialism as much as the vocal majority on Twitter thinks it is. And Twitter is not real life. What is it they say? Like 20% of the country's on Twitter, and only the most vocal people in the world are the ones that are getting all the attention. Well, obviously I'm a bit vocal myself, but yeah, only the top 10% of the top 20% of the world are the ones that are getting all the traction on Twitter. So it's really hard to say that Twitter is real life or anything like that, or make a judgment based on what you see on Twitter. It's fun to watch. It's fun to play with the people that are out there talking about things on Twitter. But for the most part, you have to take everything you see on there with a grain of salt. So yeah, there's really nothing that surprises me in any of this except for the Massachusetts race. That was the one that really blew my mind because I thought Sanders was going to do a lot better in Massachusetts. And he was no slouch there, of course. 26.6% to take second place, 26 delegates out of that. But I actually did think that Warren was going to take that walking away because, I mean, it's not her home state, obviously. Her home state is Oklahoma. And she didn't do very well there either. Biden took that almost immediately. They called that for him based on exit polling and what was rolling in. But I thought she was going to do a lot better in Massachusetts. I thought she was at least going to win Massachusetts instead of walking away with third with 17 delegates. I actually thought she had a chance to shake the race up. Not necessarily win anything and walk away with anything, but at least shake the race up by getting a good majority of those 91 delegates out of there. But such is the case. And I do hope, honestly, looking at this, and I've talked about this numerous times on Ed's World, I've talked about this on solo videos before, and I haven't talked about it on Contemporary yet, but I've talked about it in numerous other places. Nobody could stand Warren. In the progressive camp, they just think that she's taking votes away from Bernie Sanders, the grand messiah who's going to save them all from having responsibilities. And in the Democrat side, the actual old guard Union Democrat side, they can't stand her because she has no charisma and she's basically Hillary 2.0, all the corruption and none of the charm. I talked to my mom right away when Elizabeth Warren announced, because remember, she was the first one. I talked to my mom, the Democrat, and said, well, Elizabeth Warren is going to run. And my mom says, well, I hope she doesn't win. I can't stand that woman. And that is going to be a lot of the sentiment going around the country. Now, why Joe Biden is doing so well, God can only tell, because I sure as hell can't. I mean, other than the fact that it's a slap fight between two very, very old men, and I do think the DNC does have a hand in all of this. Your guess is as good as mine at this point, to be completely honest. Joe Biden, there's no reason that a 77-year-old man with Alzheimer's should be doing this well in this kind of a race. But such is life. So we'll have another debate coming up on the 15th. I would have to look and see when the next primary is. We'll double check on that because I've got enough tabs open right now and still not enough laptop to be doing what I'm doing with this. So I'm going to set up a PayPal, so if you want to help me with a laptop fund, throw me a couple bucks. I'll be, or not laptop fund, we're actually building a desktop this time through. Throw me a couple bucks into the desktop fund, that's going to be great. I'll throw that tin cup right out there. I'm not ashamed of it by any means, but yeah, that's going to be what we're going to be doing here. So that way I can look stuff up on the fly while I'm going here. But let's talk a bit more about the delegate count. So right now we are sitting here with Biden at 453, Sanders at 373, Warren is at 39. She actually had a better showing than I thought she was going to throughout, and especially given the fact that she had no delegates coming into this and nobody could still stand her. She did have a much better showing than I thought she was going to. So she is going to stay in. I thought she's going to win Massachusetts and she's going to stay in, or she's going to lose Massachusetts, get no delegates, and drop out. But she's got delegates now sitting on the board, and she is going to stay in. A lot of the Bernie bros are going to be out there throwing things at her, trying to convince her to get out of the race, because all that she's doing in their eyes is taking votes away from their Messiah. But yeah, they're just going to be pressuring her at this point. Say, get out of the race, give your delegates to Bernie Sanders. Buttigieg and Klobuchar are sitting with the delegate counts that they had before, 26 and 7. Those will obviously go to Biden. We said that just a moment ago. And then Bloomberg, like I said, he walked away with 18 delegates, but I think he sees the writing on the wall. And I don't necessarily think Bloomberg was a serious candidate for any of this either. I think Bloomberg was in there to try and run spoiler with things, and I don't think he actually believed that a billionaire could buy his way into the DNC with the way that they're structured and just with the way that everything's going. I know it was enjoyable to get him up on the debate stage and pull some of the heat off of Warren and off of Biden for a while and turn everything towards him. But I don't think he was serious. And I've been more tinfoily than a lot of people with Bloomberg. I always thought, I hear people say that they think he's running cover for one of the big three right now, but I don't think that's it either. I think he is running cover for Trump. I think he is trying to make sure that Bernie Sanders doesn't get any traction out of any of this here. Run cover for Trump to make sure that Trump gets reelected. And I mean, this is crazy because Mayor Bloomberg spent a lot of money trying to get Trump impeached, or so it showed on paper. I don't know where all that money was going, but I would love to see some documentation to all of this here. But if you think about a lot of this, and you think about what Sanders was going to do to tax the billionaires, to affect trade and be more isolationist, because socialism is a very isolationist policy. And you know that Sanders was going to slam those borders shut as soon as he got up there. As soon as he got up in, he was going to slam those borders shut as hard as he could, because he didn't want people in there trying to take away the American jobs. I mean, look at Soviet Russia. They weren't even importing cars, and they didn't know how to make cars. They didn't have any car companies. They still don't, but they figured it out. And yeah, you couldn't get a foreign car in Russia unless you were part of the Politburo. Unless you were one of the favored people to one of the politicians, there was no way you were ever going to get a foreign car into Russia, because it was a closed economy. It was a socialist closed economy. When you have a planned economy, anything coming in from the outside is a variable that you can't plan for. But Bloomberg was going to be affected by trade relations with Russia, obviously the USMCA, and he stands to benefit from a lot of this here. So it's not hard to think that he may be running cover for Trump to try and keep some of these trade deals going, trying to keep Bloomberg being a billionaire. And consider the fact that Trump and Bloomberg are both New York billionaires. They know each other. There's no way that they don't know each other, especially given the amount of business that Donald Trump did in New York while Mayor Bloomberg was the mayor. They've had their hands in each other's pockets at some point here before. So it is not a stretch to me to say that they are actually friends. They're putting on a WWE style show, as the R-rated conservative likes to say, and they're actually in this together to try and be mutually beneficial to one another. So that's where I stand on that. And Gabbard, I didn't even see where she got her delegate from, but she walked away with one of the delegates here. And yes, as a reminder to everybody, Tulsi Gabbard is still running. I am very curious how they are going to try and keep her off the debate stage now that there are only 4 actual candidates out there. I would love to see what the justification is for that, and I would love to see Gabbard sink her teeth into Sanders and Biden once again, because I don't think she cares for either one of them. Of course, she's already used Warren up and spit her back out. But, and that's with Warren. I mentioned something on Twitter the other day. Now, of course, Bloomberg is reassessing his campaign because he doesn't see a clear path to the end, but Warren is staying in. And I mentioned before, she's staying in because she has delegates right now. I mentioned on Twitter last night when I was seeing all this go down, I don't necessarily think Warren is going to get out. I think Warren is hoping to stay in to a contested convention to hold it out until July and get coronated by the DNC over in Milwaukee, which I would love to see. Oh, I would love to see that. I would love to watch that. And I'm actually planning on being there too, because Milwaukee is only like an hour over there. So I am planning on being there. I'm planning on watching all of this and seeing all the crap go down. I want to see all the Bernie bros get arrested for rioting. I cannot wait to see, because this is a crap show that they've got going on over on the DNC side, and I want to see how it culminates. I really, really do. And like I say, I always say that I think that the DNC right now is just trying to throw a Mondale up. I don't think they're actually serious about winning this election. They're just trying to make sure they don't lose the Senate in a spectacular fashion, which with the impeachment, I don't know how that's going to actually roll out. If they're going to keep the Senate, if they're going to lose it, if they're going to gain a seat, or if they're going to gain a supermajority on the Republican side. But for the most part, I think that they're going to focus their efforts on trying to win the Senate to try and block any more judges and justices being appointed, and just let Donald Trump be a lame duck for the rest of his term, because he has a House and a Senate that won't work with him. I think that's the strategy. I could be wrong, obviously, but there's no way that I'm looking at most of these candidates and thinking that they're actually trying. Look at the candidates, look at what they're doing to each other, and look at the fact that we're coming to a contested convention. There's no way that they're actually trying for this. There were some other fireworks that went on last night. Let's check out what we've got going on here. By the way, on Friday, because I've been finding little things to do at the end of the show every day, I've not been reading live chat. I actually do read your live chats after I'm done and off the air. I noticed that because I have the live chat up right now. So I'm going to shout out everybody on Friday that came and watched throughout the week as best as I can. So fear not, I'm actually reading your live chats, but we're not going to do this on the air. So last night, according to Fox News, there was a Let Dairy Die protest where protesters stormed the stage during Biden's victory speech on Super Tuesday. So let's see what they've got here. Who's the writer? Brooks Singman over at Fox News says, Let Dairy Die protesters stormed the stage at Joe Biden's victory speech in Los Angeles after the former vice president claims wins in 8 Super Tuesday states, which I'm a little surprised that they're having him do that in Los Angeles because, I mean, he got spanked in California from what I understand. So, I don't know. They're still counting. They're actually still like only 40% in from all the precincts, but from what I understand from the preliminary numbers, he got spanked. So, I mean, why not do this in Alabama or something where they called it for you right away? Let's read on. 2 female protesters rushed the stage shouting, Let Dairy Die. They held posters reading the same and showing an image of a cow. Dr. Jill Biden, Biden's sister, Valerie, or Dr. Jill Biden and Biden's sister, Valerie, attempted to block the protesters from touching the former vice president. So, Secret Service didn't help him out, but his wife and his sister did. Campaign senior advisor Simone Sanders immediately hit the stage, grabbing a protester and taking them off. The other protester was dragged off the stage by security. Biden then continued with his speech, which I'm sure had something to do with the fact of why owls are green and the moon glitters in the autumn sun, or something. That's about what a Biden speech sounds like. Sanders tweeted later saying, I broke a nail Super Tuesday. And this is, of course, we saw this going on with Bernie Sanders, where he just looked befuddled when a bunch of naked women came up on stage because, well, it's Sanders, and I've seen some of the audience. I'm sure he's seen a naked woman recently, and a much younger one than his wife, but still, he looked at this, and he was quite surprised by everything. I saw some of the video of the Let Dairy Die, and yeah, Jill Biden And Valerie just no nonsense, just grabbed him, got him off the stage, and somehow Biden went on with this like nothing happened. So it is funny to watch the left eat each other, especially in all of this. And this is such a contested Democrat National Convention. I would love to watch this. Actually, I mean, we see some of the civil war on the GOP side, but some of that comes between the Groypers and the traditionalists and the racists. I'm going to come out and say it. And then the more libertarian people that jump down to try and stem the flow of socialism. That's where the main divide is on the GOP side. But I mean, this is watching the left eat each other and watching the protesters try and take down everybody because they don't like anybody on any of these protests is just amazing. So that was good. There's video out there. I recommend you go and check that out. Let's see, what else do we have? I've got one other story here on Super Tuesday, and then we'll talk about this stupid-ass religious speech that AOC did. So Nathan J. Robinson over on Twitter throws out a map that says map 1 is Sanders versus Biden right now, Biden purple, and shows Biden walking away with most of the states like he did. Just kind of a solid go across the American Southeast, and then him taking Maine and Minnesota. And then map 2 is if Warren had done what Amy and Pete did, dropped out and endorsed Bernie, and 3/4 of her supporters had listened. Repeat this all over the United States. And it shows, of course, Bernie Sanders taking a few more states out of this here, and Biden really only having a hold in the American Southeast, rather. Almost said Southwest. So this is something, and I've actually seen this kind of behavior before, and it usually comes out of the Bernie camp. But, of course, we have no idea who was in whose camp when they were throwing it around at the end of the 2016 election, because nobody knew what was going on at that point. Nobody could believe the fact that Trump had won at that point. But a lot of these kids were coming out there, and they were throwing out maps of, okay, this is how it would have looked if only women had voted. And, of course, it showed very solidly blue. And only minorities had voted, and almost the entire map was like Mondale proportions of loss for the GOP, blue. And if only millennials had voted, and I mean, it was blue all the way across at that point here, which that bothers me. That really does. Because these people are trying to come out and say, well, we need to represent everybody. We need to do this and do that. And yet they're trying to show the votes, they're trying to show votes in election scenarios in which people are not being represented. They're trying to show these scenarios in which people are being disallowed to vote because they don't agree. Like the baby boomers, if they take them out of the equation, well, who's going to represent the baby boomers? Or the silent generation that's still alive? Or the men? Who is going to represent the white Christian men? Because I'm sure that a lot of these people would love to disallow any of them from ever having a say in the way this country goes. And I'm sure a lot of them would like to see the white Christian men eliminated from society entirely. But they're not going to say that out loud. I try and goad them on Twitter to saying that out loud, and they won't do it, unfortunately. I try to because I know that that's what they're looking for, but yeah, they won't do it. So I've got a video here, but I didn't have a chance to sit down and dirty it up to try and get it to pass copyright. So we're just going to do the sound on this at this point. So I'm going to get my headphones on here and listen to it. I've listened to this before, but we're going to play this. This is Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez making a religious argument and completely missing the point. Completely missing the point. Absolutely. And I commented on this before, and, it's... Well, let's listen to what the good representative has to say.
The only time religious freedom is invoked is in the name of bigotry and discrimination. I'm tired of it. I'm experiencing this hearing, and I'm struggling whether I respond or launch into this question as a legislator or from the perspective of a woman of faith. Because I cannot, it's very difficult to sit here and listen to arguments in the long history of this country of using scripture and weaponizing and abusing scripture to justify bigotry. White supremacists have done it. Those who justified slavery did it. Those who fought against integration did it. And we're seeing it today. And sometimes, especially in this body, I feel as though if Christ himself walked through these doors and said what he said thousands of years ago, that we should love our neighbor and our enemy, that we should welcome the stranger, fight for the least of us, that it is easier for a rich man, it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to get into a kingdom of heaven, he would be maligned as a radical and rejected from these doors. And I know, and it is part of my faith, that all people are holy and all people are sacred unconditionally. And that is what makes faith sometimes, that's what prompts us to transform, because it is unconditional. It's not about that it is up to us to love parts of people. We love all people. There is nothing holy about rejecting medical care of people, no matter who they are on the grounds of what their identity is. There is nothing holy about turning someone away from a hospital. There's nothing holy about rejecting a child from a family. There's nothing holy about writing discrimination into the law. And I am tired of communities of faith being weaponized and being mischaracterized, because the only time religious freedom is invoked is in the name of bigotry and discrimination. I'm tired of it. My faith commands me to treat Mr. Minton as holy because he is sacred, because his life is sacred, because you are not to be denied anything that I am entitled to, that we are equal in the eyes of the law, and we are equal in my faith in the eyes of the world. And so I just have to get that out ahead of time, because it is deeply disturbing, not just what is happening here, but what this administration is advancing is the idea that religion and faith is about exclusion. It is not up to us. It is not up to us to deny medical care. It is up to us to feed the hungry, to clothe the poor, to protect children, and to love all people as ourselves.
So there's a lot to unpack there. Go ahead and get the other side muted here just in case something decides to pop on and play. There's a lot to unpack there, and it's... First thing first, Christ in his ministry never wanted the enforcement of his ministry. That's one of the things that I've taken away from doing all the Bible study that I've been able to do. If you're looking for a religion that seeks to have the state enforce it on people by force, you're looking at Islam. Christ knew in his ministry that if people were to be forced into the religion, they wouldn't actually believe it, and they would continue to believe their own religion in secret when the state wasn't looking, just worshiping when the state told them to do so. And what Miss Cortez is trying to do with this, and she is... First thing is first, there's an interesting dichotomy in Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She is Latin. Latins are very well known for being Catholic. They're not all Catholic, obviously, but statistically they're well known for being Catholic and deeply religious in the Catholic faith. So there's a chance that she's right and she's not just using scripture to weaponize. She actually is religious, but she's also a Democrat Socialist of America. And what we know about socialists is that for the most part, communism and socialism tend to disagree with the idea of the people having an actual faith, usually in planned economies as such of the Soviet Union, of Cuba, of other places like that, you're supposed to worship the state and not have any other god before the state. So it's an interesting dichotomy. I don't know where she stands. I can't pretend to speak for her, but what she had to say there. Religious liberty. And this is what I said on Twitter when I commented on this. Religious liberty means that I don't have to give a fuck what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez feels in her faith. I don't have to join her religion, and she cannot use the state to force me into it. That's what religious liberty is. Now, instead, she is weaponizing the scripture and trying to force her ideas down onto me. That is not religious liberty. George Washington would be turning over, Ben Franklin, Washington, all of them would be turning over in their graves so hard that they'd be digging a hole to China, and I cannot take credit for that joke. I stole that from Matt Walsh. They would be spinning that hard, they'd be just making a tunnel straight through the world. But the other thing that goes along with this as well, she said it numerous times, all people are holy. Unconditionally. She said that several times throughout this tirade. Well, here's the reality. If you look at the way that Cortez makes law, if you look at the way that she rails against people on her Instagram, and the fact that, of course, she had to talk about the administration in this entire thing, obviously not all people are holy to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. All people are holy until they make more than $100,000 a year. That's probably not true because she makes $174,000 a year. All people are holy until they make more than $1 million per year in income. Unconditionally. Until. If you think that all people are holy, then maybe you should try and take a different look at the rich in this country, especially the ones that give massive amounts to charity but don't want to funnel it through the government in order to do so. Because you know the government's going to take their 92% cut before they give anything out to charity. And you might want to look at the president that you've railed so hard about, that you've called a demon, because he is a person too, and you don't treat him very holy. So, yeah. And I could go on for another hour on everything else that's wrong with her speech, on Christ's insistence that people work, that nobody goes. Christ was against sloth, and now we've got a Green New Deal that says people who are unable or unwilling to work. Yeah, there's just. The last thing that I commented on when I was talking about this on Twitter was the fact, because she said that she thought that if Christ would come in, he would be called a radical for his teachings. Well, if Christ were to walk into the Congress, and I've never met the guy, so I can't speak for him. But based on what I've read in the Bible, based on what I've learned about Christ, and even the sanitized versions that I did see when I was practicing organized religion, I'm pretty positive that if Christ walked into the Congress, he would go full Temple of Solomon on that. I mean, there would not be a table left standing or a chair standing up anymore. Just with the immorality, the sins, and everything else that's going on in Congress, in Christ's name on top of it, if we invoke some of the more Jesus members of the GOP, if we invoke some of them and see what's going on in Christ's name in the Congress, he would just tear that place apart. I think. Disclaimer, I've never met the man, but it was. I can't go on with this anymore, because I will start to say some things that are going to really piss some people off. Anyway, let's move on and talk about these tornadoes over in Nashville. So, we mentioned when I was reading Top Trends yesterday that there were some pretty major tornadoes going through Nashville, of course, and I have family just outside of Nashville. I did make a call on them, and it turns out that everybody is okay. It looks like one of the tornado that went through did just very narrowly miss my aunt and uncle's house, so I'm very blessed to the fact that they are safe. Their daughter, who lives in well, closer to Nashville. I actually don't know where she lives down there, but I know she's closer to Nashville proper. Also, Marked Safe on Twitter, one of my friends from growing up. Marked Safe on Facebook. I'm sorry, they were both Marked Safe on Facebook, not Twitter. Both Marked Safe on Facebook. So everybody that I know and care for that is in that immediate area is safe. So I'm not worried about that. Not everybody is safe, unfortunately. It appears that we are looking. When I talked to my uncle yesterday, there were 9 people that were deceased that were confirmed at the time. We are now up to 22. Major portions of the city are unusable. Looks like the airport got dinged. Looks like Dirks Bentley actually got a tweet in there because he was thankful of the fact that, what was it, that he was early. Yeah, we ducked around the cell and landed at John Toon Airport around 11:30 last night. Glad we landed when we did. Wouldn't have been good an hour later. It was the cell that turned into a tornado. Lots of people lost their homes. No one comes together as a city like Nashville does. And yeah, it's gonna be great. There's a lot of charity that's going through Nashville, and I mean a lot of tourists are gonna come in. They're gonna want to help because they're gonna want to keep going on vacation there. So they're gonna come in. They're gonna spend their money on the places that are there. The community's gonna come together. It's part of that southern feeling. I always say that Wisconsin is like Tennessee without the accent and with a winner. Because, I mean, we're kind of the same way. When Wisconsin is hurting, we do come together and try and rebuild Wisconsin. And Tennessee is the exact same way. I've spent some time in Tennessee. It was only a couple weeks, but I mean, to see the people that'll reach out to a stranger, the people that will come together and just try to help, that southern hospitality out there. Nashville's going to be just fine. They're going to be hurting for a little while, but they're very strong, they're very helpful, and they're very great to each other. So I look forward to seeing the rebuilding there. I'd like to go down and I don't know how I'm going to work it around vacation, but I would like to go down and help with some of the cleanup efforts. So we might get something organized in a Freedom Scoop to do that as well. We'll see what we can do for charities off of that to see if we can send some people down there to get there. I know that some of my other southern podcasters are a bit closer than I am and possibly could help out a bit more, but we will see what we've got going on there as well. We'll see what we can do. We'll see if we can at least get a GoFundMe and a charity set up so we can send some cash down there and get them raw materials to rebuild. I mean, this is only 24 hours old, so we'll have to see what's going on, what charities are going, and how we can help out. Would love to go down and get my hands dirty, though. All right, now let's do what I'm thankful for here. So, I've been looking back at the last couple years of my life and where I was before I started doing all of this, before I bought the webcam for the first time, because I was in a really, really hard place. I'm not going to discuss any of the details of how deep I was into how hard of a place I was, but it was bad. I mean, mentally, it was bad for me. A relationship was falling apart around me. I had no idea why. She wouldn't talk to me. She just needed to keep me around to subsidize her electric bill, and it was tearing my mind apart to a depth that I'm not comfortable talking about anymore at this point here. But I've completely recovered on all of this, and the human mind, if it is nurtured properly, if it's given the proper opportunities, has amazing abilities to recover. To be able to come back from some of the deepest points in the human mind and really be out there and really be able to rebuild itself, just like Tennessee is going to be able to rebuild itself. The human mind can do amazing things. I would not have thought at all 2 years ago that I would be able to be doing this, getting up in the morning after working second shift for 5 years, to be able to do this, to get this out. And I'm running a little bit late right now because I'm still trying to, change my habits in order to be able to get up and able to do things. But to be able to rebuild my mind from as deep into depression as I was and be able to focus it in on something good, something positive, and actually start to gain a following, have people that actually want to hear what I'm talking about, because I would have never thought of that when I was in my deepest point. I'm thankful for the human mind. I'm thankful for the opportunities that were given before me. I know not everybody's going to get these opportunities, so If you see somebody and you know that he is struggling, reach out to the person. That's something I've always got to say, because even just that little bit of reach, it may be enough to pull the person out of darkness and push that person forward and get him onto a path where he's producing in society rather than detracting from it and detracting from himself. I'm thankful for the human mind, and I'm thankful for the opportunities that were able to get me here to the place that I'm at today. And that's going to be all that we have for today. Join us later on today for 4 more hours of content as we go and finish off the Old World Blues DLC in Fallout New Vegas. I don't know if I'll have a show tomorrow because I'm going to be playing New Vegas from 8 to midnight, and I don't know, getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning after being out till midnight playing video games seems like something that's not going to be fun. I do want to be here, and definitely if I get up early enough, I'm going to be here out bright and early talking about more of what we see going on here. I'm sure there's going to be more news breaking as we go along. Other than that, join us later on tonight for New Vegas. Other than that, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary.